Israeli forces recovered the bodies of 6 hostages from Gaza overnight. Israel is willing to bridge the gaps in a ceasefire deal that would bring more hostages home. But Hamas continues to reject any plan.
Hamas is also claiming responsibility for an attempted terror attack in Tel Aviv yesterday. Israeli investigators suspect Iran and Hezbollah may have also been involved. CBN's Julie Stahl reports from Jerusalem.
In a joint operation overnight, Israel Defense Forces and security services rescued the bodies of 6 male hostages from tunnels near Khan Younis. The families received the tragic news after the bodies were identified. Yoram Metzger, Abraham Munder, Chaim Peri, and Alex Dancyg were taken captive by Hamas terrorists at Kibbutz Nir Oz, one of the hardest-hit communities. Metzger's wife was also taken and returned in November. Munder's wife, daughter, and grandson were also kidnapped and released earlier. Yagev Bushtab was abducted from his home in Kibbutz Nir Oz, along with his wife, who was also released in November. He was last seen in a propaganda video released on March 23rd. Nadav Papawel, also from Kibbutz Nir Oz, was kidnapped along with his mother, who was released after 49 days in captivity. Kibbutz Nir Oz member Adele Raymer told CBN News that the news brings closure.
It's sobering news, always sobering to hear something like this, but at least they'll be able to be brought back and have a proper burial in Israel, and their families and loved ones and community will have some sort of closure.
Raymer says it's important to bring the hostages back to their families as soon as possible, but the situation is complicated.
There is no easy answer. There is no one good answer. If there were, it would have been done. So on the one hand, we have to look after our country's security. On the other hand, we have to have the responsibility to bring these people home.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office released a statement saying, "Our hearts grieve over the terrible loss. My wife Sarah and I convey our heartfelt condolences to the dear families. I would like to thank the brave IDF and ISA fighters and commanders for their heroism and determined action." The rescue of the 6 bodies comes as Hamas rejected the U.S.-sponsored ceasefire deal to end the war in Gaza and free the rest of the hostages. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu supports a proposal that bridges the gaps separating Israel and Hamas.
In a very constructive meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu today, he confirmed to me that Israel accepts the bridging proposal, that he supports it. It's now incumbent on Hamas to do the same.
Netanyahu believes Blinken understands Israel can't accept any conditions in a ceasefire deal that could threaten the security of the Jewish nation.
I also greatly appreciate the understanding that the U.S. has shown for our vital security interests as part of our joint efforts to bring about the release of the hostages.
Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal reports Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar believes the hostage deal is just a bluff and is seeking to expand the conflict beyond Gaza to the West Bank. While Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad claimed responsibility for a terror attack gone wrong in Tel Aviv Sunday, Israeli officials suspect Iran and Hezbollah might have had a role. Iran is still vowing to punish Israel at the right time.
Regarding punishment for the aggressor against the Iranian territory, the Iranian government, in agreement to the UN Charter and international law, has an intrinsic right to punishment and will act decisively in this regard.
Blinken said the U.S. has deployed additional assets to the region to deter such an attack and to respond if an attack occurs. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, there is a real simple answer to this problem, and the simple answer is, will the sons of Isaac and the sons of Ishmael agree to live together in peace in the land that was promised to their father Abraham? If they can come to peace and agree to do that, then we will have peace in the Middle East and we will have peace in Israel. Now, when you look at the history of the modern state of Israel going all the way back to 1948, the sons of Isaac have been more than willing to live at peace with the sons of Ishmael. They have offered peace again and again and again. Now, when peace is accepted, when the king of Jordan accepted peace with Israel, he was assassinated. When Anwar Sadat accepted peace with Israel, he was assassinated. Because underneath this conflict is an ideology that says the Jews should not exist. And they claim as a religious mandate that if you find a Jew hiding behind a rock, you are supposed to kill him. That is in the charter of Hamas. Let's believe what they wrote so long ago, and they're still operating under that the Jews do not have any right to Israel. Israel should be wiped out from the map. And when you hear this chant in the streets right here in America, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, what they're calling for is a genocide. And they're calling for the elimination of every single Jew in Israel. I hope our State Department wakes up to this. I keep hearing from the administration they're holding out hope for negotiations and diplomacy and all of that. But when you have this ideology that you're under a religious mandate to kill Jews, you're under a religious mandate to recover every single inch of the Holy Land. When you're operating with that, then anyone who comes to peace with you and says, well, I'm going to ignore the mandate because peace is more important, when they get assassinated, we all ought to pay attention and say this prospect of peace isn't possible. We have to show force and show it consistently and show it repeatedly so that they don't get encouraged to pick up arms and have another October 7th. Their vow is to repeat October 7 again and again and again until Israel doesn't exist. Let's believe that. And in that belief, let's stand against it and call it for what it was. On October 7th, we saw the face of evil. And that face of evil is still present right now in Hamas. Let's call it for what it is and say, not on our watch. We don't have a genocide. We don't have the elimination of the Jewish people. We vowed after World War II, never again. We meant it, and we are going to stand with Israel.